So, have you ever been talking with your friends about some new game you're playing or some game you like, and you mention something that makes them go, "Wait a minute, you like that game? That game sucks, but this game is really good." Doesn't this situation make your blood boil? If so, you'd be completely reasonable for feeling that way, and we've all been there. This is a situation in which your friend is completely disregarding your opinion about something they do not like and stating that something they like is better. But let's add on to the situation. Say, you don't like the game they bring up, so you try to argue in favor of the game, and your friend keeps disregarding your opinions while playing up their own. You try to stay calm, but deep inside, you're furious. Your friend isn't listening to you at all, even though you've brought up some great points about something you're genuinely passionate about. And you call your friend out on their blatant disregard of your ideas. And let's say they respond with this: "Well, I'm right, because the game I like is objectively better than yours." This statement right here is the worst statement of all time when debating video games. Snarky people with a troubled childhood and no lives on Twitter will throw this phrase around to explain why more popular and older games are objectively better because of their worldview of game elitism and intellectual hierarchy. Nobody likes these people. They're the worst thing about the internet. So that's it, right? Bad people are bad, you just have to ignore them. In fact, you're right. Video games and other works of art are completely subjective. You can interpret games however you want. If you say something is good, it is good, and if you say something is bad, it is bad, and there's nothing else to it. Well, what if I told you that this isn't exactly true? In fact, there's a different way in which I like to view forms of art, and it takes a combination of both arguments toward the objective quality of games and the subjective quality of games. Now, this does not mean I'm greenlighting this guy in his grandma's basement who only eats potato chips, moderates Discord, and has no job that says that the games he likes are objectively better. He is completely 100% wrong and needs to check his ego, but let's say he had the same worldview but presented it in a nicer manner. Let's say he were to argue that certain games are objectively better than others for various reasons, and that while you may not like those games and prefer less popular ones, the ones that you like are objectively worse games. Now, the thing is, I don't really like this take either, no matter how it's presented, although it is rarely presented this nicely, and that's because of one word. Well, actually, it's two, but they both serve the same purpose in these conversations: better and worse. These are comparative words used to elevate the quality of something as superior or inferior to the quality of something else. They are connotated with disregarding the quality of whatever certain art form is being compared to, and although not everyone who uses these words in conversation necessarily means them that way, they often come across this way, and that can lead to more bitter discussions. But this doesn't mean I'm greenlighting the exact opposite take, which states that no game is better or worse than any other game because everyone has subjective and alternate views on video games that may or may not match the views of others, so you cannot say that a video game is better than another one. Now, this seems like a solid take at first, and you might agree with it because of its opposition to the couch potato Twitter partygoers. But the reason I can't find myself fully agreeing with it either is because it presents a world where there is no standard of quality. Let's say we have a made-up RPG game called Sword Warriors. Sword Warriors is one of the most popular indie RPGs of all time, and people online are constantly talking about it. In this hypothetical world where everyone had the mindset that no game was better than any other game, let's say there's someone whose favorite game is House Ruiner. House Ruiner is a scarcely known, short, buggy, and cheap game that is many, many times shorter than Sword Warriors, and has a far less significant cultural impact than Sword Warriors. This user is saying that House Ruiner is just as great of a game as Sword Warriors, and suddenly all the people who were originally talking about Sword Warriors start talking about House Ruiner. They never knew it existed, but now that someone has brought attention to it, it's just as popular as Sword Warriors despite taking a small fraction of the time that Sword Warriors chose to develop, and having far less effort put into how the game functioned. This is the problem with the idea that no game is better than any other game. People wouldn't have a sense of what they enjoy or what has more passion and effort put into it. We would all just be mindless sponges sopping up entertainment, not really caring what kind of entertainment it is or how it affects the gaming industry. So now I've stated my grievances with both the far right and far left sides of this argument. The far right side are the egotistical couch potatoes who claim that every game has an objective quality all the way and that every game has a difference in quality from every other game. They might say that the games they like are the best games ever. The far left side are the penguins who say that that's not true and that every game is essentially equal to every other game on an objective scale and that one's enjoyment determines the quality to them personally. Me personally, I'm in the middle, so I'm a couch potato penguin. I think that every video game, or just every work of art in general, has both objective and subjective elements that determine its overall quality. Objective elements include 1. The obvious elements of a work of art. For games, we would be examining the type of game, the graphics, and the frame rate, for example. 2. The impact that the work of art has had on society. So for games, we would examine their level of popularity and how much their existence has changed the gaming industry or subsets of the collective gaming industry for better or worse. 3. The The last objective element is the circumstances and how the work of art was made. So for games, we would examine the quality of how the game was actually created, such as the game's engine, for example. We would also consider the level of passion that the developer or developers had while making it. All of these things are completely objective and cannot be argued when they can be proven through reasonable means. Now for the subjective elements of a work of art. 1. How much someone personally enjoys a work of art. So for a game, we would look at how much fun someone had while playing it. This is bound to be different to a degree for every single person on Earth. 2. Everyone has different experiences with works of art and looks for something slightly different or greatly different in a work of art. For video games, everyone enjoys certain types of games more than others and tends to play the games that they like way more than the games that they don't like. 3. The works of art someone takes part in enjoying influences their personality and lifestyle to a different degree for every human being on the earth. So essentially, the subjective elements of a work are how the work in question affects each individual person looking at it. The difference between something objective and something subjective is that objective things are facts, which are true no matter which angle you choose to examine them on. Subjective things are opinions, which are bound to be different on a person-to-person basis and overall shape how a person thinks and acts. And both objectivity and subjectivity are very important for this world. If we only had objectivity, then humans would be so bland as we would only examine things as they appear to be, and no one would form their own unique ideas about anything. If we only had subjectivity, then everything would be chaos. Facts would simply not exist, and no human would claim to be right about anything. Nothing would get done because we would only ever be questioning if we were right. So, like it or not, everyone has both, and you need both to survive. One cannot exist without the other, and there's also no shame in either one. You should never be ashamed about knowing some random nerdy fun fact about a video game. And on the subjective side, you should never be ashamed that your opinion over a game does not match the opinion of another, or the more popular opinion on that specific game. And you should never change your opinion on a game so it does match the opinion of another. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions and ideas, and everyone is objectively right sometimes and objectively wrong sometimes. So, tying back to the video games, every game has objective things about it that reveal its cultural impact, the care that the developers put into it as a functioning video game, and the overall circumstances and how it was created. Meanwhile, everyone is going to have either a small difference of opinion or a large difference of opinion over every other person based on how much they personally enjoyed the game. If we could respect the ways in which video games are created and find ways in which they shape our lives, as well as the differing opinions of everyone who has different views on games based on how it was personally affecting their life to a positive or negative extent, the world would be a lot better, but not everyone sees it this way, and that's the problem. Some people still want to hold on to the idea that they're objectively right about something that is subjective, and on the opposite end, some people will claim subjectivity in an objective fact, which cannot be argued. Facts cannot be subjective. That's the whole point. They are facts, but they are often twisted in subjective ways, and subjective opinions are often twisted in objective ways. And this all boils down to human nature. Humans are naturally competitive creatures. Many people will fight to the death that they believe they're right, despite possibly being very wrong, in fact. And other people lack confidence because they're scared of the feelings that will come over them when they realize they're wrong. This is the unfortunate truth of humanity, and it's definitely not something we can realistically widely change. However, in the gaming community, there are things we can do to improve the situation overall, and that's to remove those pesky words like better, worse, good, and bad from our conversations. These words convey strong meanings with them regardless of how people originally intend to use them. They are also completely subjective, as they compare one thing to another that another person might view differently. So maybe instead of just calling games good, bad, better, or worse than each other, we can talk about the individual aspects of video games that are subjective and how these aspects have largely shaped our individual lives. Talking about the subjective nature of games in a positive manner can help us understand each other's perspectives and learn something new for ourselves. So instead of saying, Sword Warriors is a lot better than House Ruiner and your opinion sucks, you should say, there's a lot you could like about House Ruiner, but that depends on your overall perspective on every unique aspect of the game, and everyone is bound to look at it a little differently. I personally view these aspects in which you enjoy about House Ruiner in a negative light. Therefore, I will say with all due respect that I personally prefer Sword Warriors as an overall experience, as that is a game that has affected my life to a greater extent, and I personally enjoy the individual aspects of Sword Warriors to a greater extent than I do the aspects of House Ruiner. However, your opinion is still completely valid, and I respect your line of thinking. Okay, I think I just realized why no one is ever actually going to do this, because that was a mouthful.